Well, here's a story that no one in the corporate media is covering except our next guest. The Biden and Harris administration colluded with big tech and the Justin Trudeau regime to undermine the Canadian freedom truckers. Yes, the Biden and Harris regime colluding with Justin Trudeau to undermine the freedom trucker convoy in Canada. This is a bombshell story, and the man responsible for covering it is David Krayden, who writes at the Post Millennial. David, this is a really shocking story, but I guess shocking to a lot of people who aren't paying attention, not surprising. Walk us through this story if you can.
Well, Clayton, it's quite incredible because this story came to me completely by accident, as it did to the people who first received it. A group called Guns of America, which is, if you're a firearm owner, you know who they are. And they did a Freedom of Information Act request to the Department of Homeland Security. And it had nothing to do with the Freedom Convoy in Canada. Nothing at all. They were just trying to see if they were on the radar in terms of what does DHS have in store for us? Are they surveying us? Are they tapping into anything we're doing? Is there anything we should be worried about? So they put an access request in. And what they got back was a bombshell that they didn't even realize at first how much of a bombshell. For some reason, their request triggered Freedom Convoy, which of course was the Freedom Convoy in Canada fighting the COVID-19 mandates in February 2022. And the documents that came back were just incredible. And the one that is perhaps most damning for the Biden administration is the one that reads, and this is an actual email within the Disinformation Governance Board. You recall who that group is. That was the one headed up, of course, by Jankowicz. So you recently put her infamous TikTok.
Singing Mary Poppins songs. Yeah, Nina Jankowicz. Yes. Oh, yeah, yes. Exactly.
The song and dance woman who, of course, joyfully talks about redacting and censoring the world, ridding the world of anything she considers disinformation. So here's how they talked in her department about, we asked about recent reports with foreign accounts spreading or generating content associated with the Freedom Convoy. News about Meta taking action to deplatform these accounts broke right before the meeting. The email reads, I&A had some feedback about its capabilities in this area, which I look forward to sharing with you. We discussed whether engaging with Meta and Twitter to share information convoy-related matters, inauthentic activity violating terms of service, if that would be prudent. We will circle back with I&A on that tomorrow. CBB is supportive of engagement with. We agree that we need to set up a formal structure for these analytic exchanges. So clearly, you don't have to be an idiot or even that perceptive to understand they're talking about the Biden administration colluding with big social media, which we, of course, learned from the Twitter files they were doing. The Biden administration was dealing with Meta and Twitter at that time, the pre-Elon Musk Twitter, before this BS stopped, and social media platforms telling them to deplatform people, telling them to censor information, telling them to take information off, and they were obeying. And this is hard, concrete evidence that they did that towards the Freedom Convoy. They told them to take down websites. They told them to take down information that they deemed to be contrary to the Trudeau government and the Biden administration. Now it gets even better, because this is a write-up from the White House, and it says this is a report of a meeting between Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden on February the 11th, 2022. And this is called the White House Readout. This is a paper that comes out every time Joe Biden has an official meeting with anybody. It says, in turn, the Prime Minister thanked the President and his administration, the Governor of Michigan, and U.S. officials for all of the assistance that the United States is providing to resolve this disruption, meaning the Freedom Convoy dispute and at the time the border dispute. The two leaders agreed to stay in close touch in the days ahead to ensure that the free flow of traffic is restored at these vital transit points. Now, I interviewed Gord McGill on Tuesday, actually. Now, Gord McGill is a trucker. He was at the Freedom Convoy. He's now an independent journalist, and he also writes for Newsweek every week about freedom-related issues and things like that. And he's been on Tucker Carlson's show talking about these very things. I've been in contact with him now for many weeks. We've been talking about this. And he shared these documents with me the other day, and he wasn't even aware before he read through the entire 165 pages of documents what he had in his hands. So I interviewed Gord the other day, and he said what's really telling in this correspondence is the word assistance. He says clearly the United States could offer Canada no assistance in putting down the Freedom Convoy. In fact, the Trudeau government and the Ontario government actually tried to get U.S. tow trucks to cross the border to remove these trucks that were on the streets in Ottawa. The U.S. tow truck firms, 100% of them all said, pound sand. We're not doing it.
No way we're doing that. No way we're doing that. Exactly.
And as Gord pointed out to me, he said there was no assistance offered from any American company or any American utility to put down the Freedom Convoy protest. The only assistance offered was clearly in the other email relating to actually deplatforming the Freedom Convoy. That was clearly the assistance that Joe Biden offered Justin Trudeau. This is absolutely
amazing.
Shocking.
It is shocking. It is amazing. So United States, you have Americans and American companies who are near the border, tow trucking companies and others that said absolutely not. We stand with our brothers and sisters up there in Canada who are a part of this Freedom Convoy. We are not offering assistance. We are not going to go up there and tow these trucks. Absolutely not. Even though there was blockades, of course, going across the border, and all of that. So the only assistance actually came from the Biden administration, strong-arming social media companies to block information and deplatform members of the trucker convoy. And I remember it was odd because in the United States, for those of our American viewers will remember, it was difficult to get information about the Freedom Convoy on social media. It was you couldn't really find it. Now we know why.
Precisely, that the information was being blocked. And I've talked to several of the organizers like Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, and they said the same thing. It was difficult to get their message out, even to their own people. And this is the irony of this, Clayton, is that these, like Tamara Leach and Chris Barber are still up on charges, and their trial resumes next week for mischief, apparently for fomenting rebellion and insurrection and non-peaceful protest. And all of the messages they put out on social media urged people to demonstrate peacefully. 100% of them. I've listened to every one of them. And in fact, the prosecution keeps playing these and doesn't see the irony of playing these recordings. But Tamara and Chris have both told me they had trouble getting these social media messages out to even their own followers, out to even their own Freedom Convoy participants. So there's the irony, is that the Biden administration was working to create violent protest by reducing the opportunity of people like Tamara Leach and Chris Barber to get that message out to the truckers. Thankfully, they were sensible people and they didn't need coaching.
Right. I'll get you out of here on this, David. Do we know what the Trudeau side of this is yet in their relationship? Have we seen complementary documents on the Canadian side supporting the sort of back and forth? We have these Freedom of Information Act requests from the Biden administration side, but what about on the Trudeau side?
85% of the documents related to the Freedom Convoy have yet to be released. There are a number of requests. In fact, I think I should do one myself because I've been relying on other people to do this. They're being stonewalled. In Canada, it's called an access to information request as opposed to a freedom of information request. But it's the same procedure. And I used to deal with these actually from the other side when I was in uniform in the military. We used to get them constantly, and we had to, of course, process them. I have done my own when I worked with the official opposition, and I've done my own as a journalist. It is a fairly simple procedure, and the government should not be stonewalling. It's contrary to law to do so. So what is going on with these documents? I think there's a huge story here yet to be heard about the Canadian connection, because so many people have resigned over the invocation of the Emergencies Act. And this meeting between Biden and Trudeau occurred just 3 days before February 14th, 2022, when Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, which of course has since been declared unconstitutional by a superior or federal judge. So this whole thing stinks on both sides of the border. And if this is not revealed, and if we don't get answers on this, you can bet Trudeau will try this again the next time a crisis comes along, whether it's another pandemic or whether it's a crisis of his own making.
Hallelujah. You're absolutely right about that. And, Kamala Harris right now is campaigning on the concept of freedom. That's a big part of her platform now, freedom, as we've talked about here on Redacted, and we're going to do a deep dive on that in moments here on the show. But that's so freedom to do what? Freedom to clamp down on speech, freedom to only put out a certain narrative that the regime wants you to hear. That's unbelievable. And it's an unbelievable story, really it is. And so now we know the Biden and Harris administration colluded with the Justin Trudeau administration and big tech to silence the Canadian Freedom Convoy and the truckers there. And they won't stop. They won't stop. David, great reporting on this. Thank you for your work at the Post Millennial, and keep on this great story. This is unbelievable. Thanks, David.
Thanks so much, Clayton. It's a pleasure to be on the show again.